Art Check with Professor Kerr.
Hi.
He has hopped on. Yeah, he's that way. This is really weird.
I don't think I've ever had my name be Teal before on one of these. It's exciting.
Yep. Welcome to our shared StreamYard account. It's always teal.
Yep. It's a fun color.
We did it black once, and I was wearing a black shirt, so we don't do it anymore.
Gotcha.
Yes, well, welcome back to 48-Hour Art Check, where we're actually going to do a full week of it.
Yay!
And not do 3 in 3 weeks.
Yep, we're back at it.
We're back at it. And so we'll just kick things off. I don't care who starts, but who wants to go with what they've done in the last 48 hours?
I can start. So I have, is that the right? There we go.
Yep.
So my Adobe subscription has ended. And I'm too poor to buy a new one. So I am going through and updating my website, which is something I should have been doing for a long time, but I haven't. So I'm putting my senior project on there and a bunch of projects that I've worked on recently. And I'm also going through the process of building a new one behind the functioning one so that I'm actually coding this one instead of just manipulating the WordPress, because that's something you can do without Adobe products. So yeah, there we go.
It's a good way around it.
Yeah.
I feel like if I lost Adobe, I would just be like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm done.
It took me a hot minute to figure something out.
Okay, Professor Kerr.
If you guys want to add that. So I finished my short film, and now I'm just working on the credit sequence. And so I have submitted it to 18 film festivals so far.
Wow.
So we'll see.
Nice.
We'll see where that ends up. And then I've just been kind of doing a lot of the audio mastering. I'm working with a couple people helping me with that, who are going to end up in the credits, and things like that. So that's kind of what I've done in the last little bit. It was kind of a longer weekend where I went for about 14 hours on Saturday to make sure I hit all of the things I wanted to do. So.
Wow.
Yeah, it was good.
I'm like staring at your animation, trying to figure out how you did each movement of it.
Yeah.
It's all rotation with a little bit of wiggle, and then just things parented to other things.
Yeah, that's where I'm at though right now, where I watch any animation. I'm like, how did that happen? It's ruined watching Disney movies. Completely ruined it.
Good. That's the shift from being a creator, or for me to being a consumer to being a creator. That's a good place to be.
That's a good way to look at it. I just look at it and I'm like, great, now I analyze Disney movies. So I have like one thing to show and then stuff to talk about, but I created this organizational communication sticker for Professor Kerr, actually, for a comm day that BYUI is hosting for a bunch of high schoolers. And they wanted stickers to represent each of the different emphases, I don't know. And so I was in charge of the organizational and strategic communications one. And so I did that. And then I'm learning to animate in 3D space for a 3D animation on web hosting that I'm making for Professor Libert. And so
in what software?
After Effects.
Oh, just using ZSpace?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
cool.
I've been in ZSpace twice before, and it confuses me every single time. And so I'm actually trying to figure that out before I jump right into it. I'm like kind of doing basic animatic stuff, learning ZSpace.
Cool.
And then I started on my portfolio website, and that's just going to be a whole semester project because it's actually for a class. And then made a pitch video for a storybook that a kid jumps from dream to different dreams, and each one is in a different illustration style, and it got chosen. So working on that for the capstone class.
Nice.
So Kaitlin, what were your challenges?
Yeah, just kind of what I've mentioned of trying to figure out a way to work around not having Adobe, because like for the past 4 years, that's what I've worked in. And so I initially was going to try and find a program that I want to learn. And I still want to do that, but I figured this would be a good time and a good chance to sit down and do all the stuff that I've been putting off. So, yeah.
All right. Professor Kerr?
Challenges, nothing huge. My wife is doing a play, and so there's some single parent evenings that you've got to kind of navigate. Mainly just time. I have a full-time job, so I can't spend all the time I want doing all the things I want. But yeah, not a significant number of challenges right now. I'm able to usually get started on my projects by 9 or 10. So.
Okay. See, my challenges are kind of self-caused, which is why the topic is what it is today. But I've constantly been in a state of stress for the past week and a half. And so it's all my fault because I can't say no. And I just add projects upon projects. So with that, and then also school, I have changed my schedule probably like 5 times. And so now it's a set schedule that I'm not changing. So that's the goal, at least.
Because you can't, or because you don't want to?
Because I really don't want to. Because like I've spaced it out to where I'm in 3 online classes, and then I show up for group meetings, and I'm in the Mac lab at specific times. And so it like actually all works out now. And so I don't want to change it again. So like I have specific time where I can work on projects now. So this way I'm not just constantly always feeling like I have to switch from project to project.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully that goes well. Sorry, I'm in a study room and people are moving furniture.
I was wondering what was going on. There was some kind of earthquake or something.
Yeah, there's FHE going on in my apartment, so I'm in a study room.
Gotcha.
And then what about the next 48 hours? Kaitlin?
Yeah, so this is something that me and Kayla have talked about for a little bit, but I actually have the time to do it now. We are going to be turning our 48-hour art check into a podcast so that you'll be able to listen to it as well if you don't have the chance to watch it. So I am going to be working on taking the audio and working that into a podcast and hosting it on a website and all that good stuff. So look forward to that.
That's exciting. Where are you guys going to host it?
I have been looking at a couple different plugins that WordPress has to potentially host it on my website already, but like as a subdomain of my website.
Like Blueberry?
Yeah, that was one of the ones I looked at. So
cool.
Yeah.
I did that for a little bit on that plugin.
Yeah. Do you like, because I know, I can't think of the name of the website, but I know that you don't host it there anymore.
Yeah, I switched to Squarespace.
Yeah.
Because I'm one of those people that doesn't like programming, so
oh.
all the stuff that you guys are learning is super important. Unless you're like me and you're like, I could just not do that, right? That's an option.
Yeah, so, it's important to learn it.
It is. And I had to learn it at one point. You know, I learned a little bit of CSS and a little bit of HTML and just enough to know that that's not my thing.
That's yeah.
So I have friends like Libert, and then I don't need it to be my thing because, you know, I know him.
And he does it. Oh my goodness. Okay, Professor Kerr, what about the next 48 hours?
Well, the next 48 hours, I'm going to finish what I'm doing in this. So probably tonight is my goal to finish off the credits, and then I haven't thought past that because that's the conclusion of like a 6 or 7 week project that I've been working on. I probably am like 200 plus hours into it.
Wow.
And so I will probably take a break. I'll probably play some Rocket League and take a nap. I think those are the things I'm going to do. Reintroduce myself to my family.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's funny. For my X48, my group doesn't know that we're doing this yet, but we're making a Gantt chart. So that. And then we have to start establishing the plot of the story, because that could take weeks and I don't want it to. And so we have to like pretty much choose a plot and then write it. And then working more on my website because it's part of a class. And my goal is to not pick up any more side projects this week. So.
All right.
Good goal.
Yes. All right. So the topic, I'm excited for this one because I specifically wanted to do it when Professor Kerr was on, because he's been giving me advice on this for like a while, but specifically in the past week. And it's not just been him, but it's been Libert and Rodman as well. But he's giving me the most advice on it.
I can't help myself. I just like people say hi and I'm like, let me spew advice at you.
I appreciate it
Good.
so much. Like getting advice from you guys, I'm like, this is great. I needed advice. I don't get much of this. I need this.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yes. And so I specifically wanted to do it while you were on. This is kind of more of a topic where I'm going to listen because I don't have much of a right to tell other people how to pace themselves.
No, that's how you figure things out.
That's true.
You explain it out loud, and in articulating, your brain is like, this makes sense because I heard my own voice say it.
Yeah, that's probably. I'll participate a bit. I just don't know how much. But yeah, I'm really, 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 really bad at pacing myself, and I always am like feeling like I need to take on more projects, and I basically force it to where I never have time for anything, and then I take on more projects, and I am just really bad at spacing them out or saying no. I basically don't know how to say no, and just figuring all that out. And so I just thought it would be a good topic to discuss because I have been told that I'm not the only person that struggles with this. So just thought it would be.
Well, let me ask you guys some questions then.
Okay.
Instead of just me just lecturing, since I do that all day. Why are, and you can give short answers, what are you guys trying to achieve by doing extra work that you're not required to do?
I want a portfolio.
Okay.
Like I want a super impressive portfolio when I get out of college. So this way employers see it and they're like, okay, like this person was in college and seriously made the most of it, and not every assignment they did was for class.
And you want that portfolio because you want to get a job with it?
Yes.
What are you going to do after you get a job?
Continue on side projects because I'd probably go crazy.
Okay. So part of it is employment, and another part of it is
boredom.
Boredom. So
Yes.
curing boredom. Okay.
I have been in a personal like goal with myself. Like the iPhone tells you your screen time, and I don't want it to go above 3 hours a day. When it was summer, I was literally at like 14 hours.
Right.
And then I did the 24 days, and I slowly saw it decrease. And so like I'm keeping it at like no more than 3. Like
Okay.
the exception is Slack.
Yeah. Well, there's some productivity apps and things. So
Yeah.
Kaitlin, why are you bothering to do extra stuff that you're not required to do?
I mostly I choose to do it because like I want to learn extra things. Like I'll see a project that someone else is doing and I'll be like, oh, that's really cool. I want to learn how to do that. And so I'll take on a project that forces me to learn how to do it. And
Why?
mostly just because I'm curious, but there's always that factor of like I want to be really good at things. And so I want to be able to say I can do this thing that I've seen other people do too.
Okay. And why? What is it that you get out of that achievement or that comparison?
I feel like it makes me more valuable as a designer.
Okay. And is that to also be employed? Is that what you're going for as well?
Probably. Yeah.
Okay. Are you going to continue stuff like this after you have your first job?
Yeah.
Why?
Probably just the continuing to grow aspect of it.
What is it about the growth that does something for you? What does that do?
I think it's just I've mentioned it before on here, but like I have this fear of stagnating, of like stopping and not continuing on with design in general. And so I think by learning more things and forcing myself to work on more things, I get rid of that fear.
Okay. So you're concerned about becoming irrelevant.
Yeah.
Because everything moves past you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I can relate to all of this. So just to recap, both of you are saying that you're doing it mainly right now as students. This is mostly why students do anything, right? Is to get a job, right? That's your ultimate goal. Once you get that job though, you realize that, you need to continue to do that so that you don't stagnate, right? So that you continue to be good at it. But there's also kind of like a mental health side of it, which I can super relate to because I don't feel right if I'm not making things. Like if I'm not producing stuff, it just feels like I'm not complete. And so there's some sort of satisfaction that is also coming from that. There's some sort of desire to, that's how my mentor is, the way Cory asked. Yeah. Okay. So asking why is great because I don't know. I can assume, but you also have some options of like it feels better to be making things and achieving things and growing and learning. Because I think as humans, we are meant to grow and learn and increase in wisdom and stature and all that jazz, right? We're supposed to go out there and we are supposed to do that. We're wired for that. And when we don't, we either have to numb ourselves or we feel bad. And so lots of people get into kind of like this numbing behavior, right? Where it's like, well, I'm going to use drugs, alcohol, video games, emotionally disconnect, like whatever it is, because I don't like feeling like I feel. And so we get into this idea of numbing. So the reason I ask all these questions is there seems to be mostly positive reasons why we are all doing extra work that we're not required to do. Side projects, passion projects, personal projects, whatever you want to call that. The challenge becomes that when you are doing that, you're doing that at the sacrifice of other things. And so if that sacrifice is so great that it begins to harm those things, whether it harms your relationships that are important to you, there are certain relationships that aren't important to me, like there are certain relationships where I'm like, yeah, it's fine. I'm going to be nice and whatever. But if like I don't talk to X person for 3 months, it's fine, right? But like my family and, like good friends and things like that, there are certain relationships, my kids. And if at any point in time, a project kind of cuts into my relationship with any of those people that I've deemed important, then it is no longer a benefit to me. It's starting to be a problem because it's starting to cut into things that I don't like. And that's, I think, where burnout comes in. If you guys are like me and anybody listening is like me, we are using creation as kind of a weird self-medication, right? We've gotten good at some things, and it feels good to use those skills. But in using those skills, if it actually causes us mental health issues, and I'm not talking about anything extreme, I'm just talking about, some stress and some, things like that. Like you begin to burn out. There's kind of, you've taken, you're overdosing on that medication, right? And so like prescribed medication can be really good, whether it's like going for a walk, or if there's some drugs to balance things out, or whatever. Like I can walk myself to death, but going on a brisk walk for however many minutes a day is supposed to be really good for you. But if I did that for like 22 hours a day, like I wouldn't last long. Like, and so you can OD on good things. And that's where I think like pacing yourself on your side projects is really important, because it's good to do side projects. It's not good to OD on side projects. And most people don't need to hear this message, because most people are on the opposite end of the spectrum. They're in the numbing behavior where they are pretending like they don't need to be making something by trying to numb themselves into thinking that they are only to consume and only to be entertained, rather than also supposed to balance that out with creation, right? But you can push so hard that it can harm you physically. If you're going, like I have a tendency to go so hard sometimes that like I forget to sleep, and like we need that, we need sleep, we need rest, we need balance in our lives. And so that's kind of why I wanted to start with why you guys are doing this, is because if at any point in time any of those things gets called into question, the reasons why you're doing this in the first place, it starts to cause those things to be detrimental. That's a problem. And so part of it is like, you guys want to get jobs. That's a long haul, right? That's you guys are going to have decades. I'm probably 20 years older than both of you. And I was saying this the other day, I'm not old, right? But I'm twice your age, and I'm still quite young. And there are people that I know that are 10, 20 years older than me. They're still not old. They're 3 times your age, and they're still going strong. They've got lots of things that they're going to do in their life before they die. And so this idea of like, I need to get all this stuff done right this second, it can actually be really detrimental, because one, you might be able to get a lot of stuff done in a short period of time, but too much of that and you burn out. And then how long until you recover from that burnout? Is it going to be 6 months? Is it going to be a year? Right? Are you going to crash and never do that thing again? Because it's like eating something when you have the flu and then you throw up, and then now every time you see that thing, you're like, oh, I have a bad taste in my mouth. You're like, oh, I don't like photography anymore because I OD'd on photography one time, and I didn't feel great about myself for like weeks after that, and whatever. And so that every time you look at a camera, you have like a twitch. Like you can actually do detriment to your ability to get a job. And maybe if you just dial it back from like 110 back to 80, you could still produce stuff for that 6 months. Mm-hmm. And you'd get a lot more done at a slower rate than you do in these spurts of like hyperactivity and burnout. And so if you look at life more as like a movie rather than as a single frame of that movie, then you realize that there are hundreds of thousands of single images. There are, tens of thousands of days, and a little bit of progress forward is way better on a daily basis than a lot of progress and then having to like get through burnout. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the main thing, is most people don't need to hear this, because most people need to get off their butt and do something. But a lot of people that grab onto this idea, and you get a little bit of taste of what it's like to make things and what it's like to produce, you really start to open up. It's like kind of that runner's high where like you run I've never experienced this because I don't run, but I've heard about it. You run long enough, and then there's like this second wind, and it's supposed to be all euphoric and whatever. But you can still push beyond that way too hard, where you're actually injuring yourself.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting because like I know quite a few people that I know. I'm in the same boat where I know a lot of people that I wish would do more. Um, but I know a couple of people that are like me, and it's like, okay, I'm just gonna go. And it's like something that you were talking about was like interesting because I feel also, and like at least speaking for myself, people that like that do as much as I do, I know for sure. Like for me, I just have like a super addictive personality. Like
Mhm.
that's the way that stuff is. And I remember on your video on bad habits, your 48-hour art check, I had talked about like, well, this like I quit smoking and drinking and then I just started designing and that's 100% what I started to do. And so like it's one of those things where it's like I see what you're saying where it's like you could totally just get sick of it, like completely burn out, be done, and like because I just use it all of the time. I'm always designing. Like um I literally will sit in other classes and have no clue what's going on if it's not a design class or like a communications and typically not a design class unless it's a design class or like a photography class or something. But like I just will have absolutely no clue what's going on in the world around me because I just want to design. I just want to animate. I just want to do this stuff.
And I want to point this out. That can be problematic because you will create art based on your experiences, and if you've checked out of your life, you will soon run out of things to draw on.
Okay.
So if you're like I was doing a children's book last year, I guess, or whatever, earlier this year, I can't remember, recently, sometime. A year for you guys seems like a long time, but for me, it's not that long. But recently, I was doing a children's book, and I remember solving a problem of like how the trees should look by remembering the pattern of the leaves and like how they grew in a specific pattern. They grew in like clumps of three, but they were offset. And had I not like gone on a walk and been hiking and like, like done enjoyable things outside, not creating things, my brain wouldn't have been able to solve that problem. And then it actually happened that I was doing a bunch of stuff outside, not a bunch of stuff, but like a little bit. And then I also was reading this comic book. I was reading Wonder Woman. I can't remember I think it wasn't Cliff Chang. Anyway, there was an artist that drew something in that book, and when she was in the jungle, and it triggered for me. I was like, oh, there's patterns to the way plants grow. And then I recalled, so it was these combination of these two different things that I was doing for fun that had no like output, I wasn't looking to create anything. I wasn't looking to deconstruct anything. I just was enjoying myself, and it affected my art in a positive way. And had I not had those experiences, I would still be drawing like really crappy looking, like bubbly bushes that have like two like Donald Duck looking leaves on them. And like, it didn't look like the rest of my book, which is a lot more detailed. There's just these oddly cartoonish, like Warner Brothers looking bushes. And so that's what I'm talking about is at times you will need to draw from your life. You need to draw from your experiences. And most people who know what they're talking about in visual communication will tell you that if you have no experiences, you're only useful to a certain extent. And it's mainly the stuff that will be automated, the execution side of things. But the idea side of things, the ideas come from living life. And so it's awesome that you're focused on design, that you found something to replace something that you've decided was negative in your life, like drugs and alcohol. But if that vacuum is completely filled with something that's going to burn you out, then that's not great. So you got to balance that out. And so maybe you have like a 60-40 or an 80-20 or a 50-50, where you're going to You're going to say, you know what? I just really like kayaking. I just really like knitting. I just really like playing video games. I just really like whatever. I get enjoyment out of this thing. And it's different than the thing I'm producing. I mean, like Josh, my co-host for My Art Check, he's in a band, right? He's in a punk band, and they practice every Tuesday night, and they go play bars on the weekends and stuff. And like, he likes that. He's not doing that because it's creation, but he's not doing that because it like helps him with his graphic novel or he's producing anything with it. That's an outlet for him.
Yeah.
I just talked for a long time. So
No, I'm muted because I think that these people are like doing something for FHE in one of these common rooms because it's so loud. And they're just slamming stuff on the floor. So I just keep on muting myself. But no, I was thinking about what you were saying about like drawing from your like life experiences for your art, because we're creating this storybook. And I know like there's 4 of us in the group, 5 of us in the group. I don't know, and everybody else has like these like big ideas for what's happening. And I was like, my mind's stuck at a stick figure. Like I don't know what's going on, but my head is stuck at a stick figure and grayscale design, and this is about all I can think of right now. And like I got that way at the end of my 24 days or something, where I was living with my 4 of my best friends. They're 2 married couples, and I was living with them, and I would just like come upstairs and I'd be like, okay, I need a sticker. Just tell me something. tell me 2 things that I can mesh into one sticker, because I can't think about anything right now. And so I don't know. I just think it's interesting. I mean, you and I've had this conversation, and the more that we talk about it, the more I realize why I'm pushing myself so hard. And so
yeah, and I think it's good, right? I mean, if you take somebody who's addicted to crack or something, and then they give it up and they fill that void in their life with exercise. Like that's generally like a really positive move, right? Like to move away from something that's destructive towards something that's positive. But if they're not careful, they're still running away from something, right? So let's say they take up running. They're not running for the enjoyment of running. They're running for the fear of not going back to crack. And so if you can shift it so that it becomes production for the sake of like positive net gain of what you're getting out of it, rather than fear of what might happen when you don't do it, that's a good mental shift to have. Like I operate on the fear that, at any point in time, something might change and I might be out of work. That's not like a healthy place to be. It's a useful place to be in a lot of ways, because it's driven me to become very skilled in a number of different areas, because I like to diversify my skill set. But, it also comes with like anxiety and worry. And so I've tried to get to the point where, I can trust that things will be okay, while still producing things. And now lately I've been getting into that kind of mind space where I'm creating because I enjoy producing things. I enjoy the challenge of it. There's something about kind of self-mastery where you're getting better at things that's very motivating. And I think it's a much better and healthier kind of headspace to be in than running from the fear of something. And so that's one thing. And the other thing is like, go back to your goals. Like one of my goals is to live like a balanced life. I don't want to be one of those people that, is divorced and my kids hate me, but I have like these incredible graphic novels under my belt or whatever. I don't want to be one of those people who have great family relationships, but the next 40 years go by and I haven't produced anything of any value. Like I want a balance of both of those things. I want to be able to make some stuff, and I want to be able to have good relationships with my family. And I want to like not sacrifice my happiness and well-being to produce an animated short film or something like that. And so whenever I'm doing any one thing that is going to throw me out of balance, I remind myself that one of my main goals is that I want to live a balanced life, that I want to live a life of no regrets, that 5 years from now, I want to look back and say, yeah, I don't regret anything in the last 5 years. Like, yeah, I could have gotten more work done. I could have spent more time, kind of watching TV with my kid or whatever, but like, I have a pretty good balance of those things. I feel like I have a good relationship. I feel like I've made some cool stuff, and that's kind of one of those things. So getting jobs is good. Improving is good. Not doing negative, destructive behavior is good. But those type of balances, are like a good thing to remind yourself of when you're. And it's not like here's the thing that I think is really frustrating, is that at no point in time are you like, cool, this is it. So I just kind of like put cruise control on at this speed for the next 85 years until I'm dead, and I will be happy and never need to make an adjustment. It's just kind of like you just day in and day out, you have to kind of like take a look at what's going on and be like, how did last week go? I probably a little out of balance in this area, or every couple days you're like, you know what? I'm really tired. Maybe going to bed at 4 a.m. every night and getting up to go to class at 8 a.m. is not working. Like let's reevaluate this. It's just this constant idea of maintaining balance, which doesn't mean that you strike a balance and then never have to do anything. It means that you're constantly making these little micro adjustments. Maybe there's some major adjustments at the beginning, and then you make these little micro adjustments. And then right as you're pretty good at just maintaining those micro adjustments, the universe is going to throw something at you where you completely fall over and you got to pick yourself up and pick up everything you were balancing and figure it all out again, because now the world's changed. The path has changed. The ground shook underneath you, whatever you want to do with this analogy that's really not going anywhere. But like, it's kind of like this consistent balancing act, this consistent idea of these adjustments, because it's, I don't know. It seems to me, and I don't know, I can't remember what it was like to be 20. I like to think that I can, but I don't remember. But like, it seems to me, I see a lot of college students thinking that the choices that they make are like significantly important, as if like you make a choice and that puts you on a particular path that you will never be able to leave, and you're in this groove, and the vector that you choose when you're 20 is the direction and speed at which you go for the rest of your life. And that's just not true, because you can constantly make these little adjustments, and every little adjustment that you make changes everything.
Yeah.
And so like, if you do project A instead of project B, yeah, there's going to be some net positive and net negative effect to that. But the long and the short of it is, at the end of that, you can still do the other one if you want, because you got half a century before you start having an arthritis, or whatever. And even then,
I keep on hopping in, so I'm gonna let Kaitlin say stuff.
This whole topic is causing me to think back, because like probably about my 5th or 6th. Well, okay, when I was a sophomore, I did have a burnout, like really, really bad, and it like I had to take off like almost a full year from school to like recuperate, and then even after recuperating, like the thing that I was burning myself out on was schoolwork. I was taking like 16, 17 credits a semester, and like I did like, so our school has the track system, and I did fall, winter, spring, summer 2 years in a row straight through. And yeah, I'm telling you right now, because you're gonna burn out on schoolwork.
I already have.
Professor Kerr was saying of like, you don't want to do the thing that burned you out anymore. The thing that burned me out was schoolwork. So I didn't want to like, and the whole later half of my college performance, like 100% suffered because I burned myself out that fast. But one of the things I was thinking about was I ended up in a friend group. I was on the school newspaper, and like the people that end up on the school newspaper on like the paid staff are very driven people who like push really hard and work really hard. And I like got caught up in that energy. And so that's something I've been thinking about this whole time that we've been talking, is like my escape from my schoolwork, like my friend group, was people who were also pushing really hard in schoolwork. So like my break wasn't even a break from my my outlet wasn't even really an outlet. And so I think that it's important to make sure that you have that space and that outlet. And so like, I'm not saying don't have friends that are also designers, but like make sure that your space truly is free from what is causing your stress in your life, if that makes sense.
So I don't know about you guys, but this is a problem that I run into. And like, this is why like I'm so adamant about like group projects, or like making sure that like my friends are all like doing a bunch of stuff. And it's because I am driven insane, like actually going nuts if I am in a group of people and nobody's doing anything like productive. I don't know why, but I just go crazy. Sitting in classes sometimes, I'm going crazy in my head during some classes, because I'm just sitting there and nobody's doing anything. And I'm just sitting there and I'm like, okay, I am done. Like, I don't like this. I don't like being surrounded by people that aren't doing much. And it's not like I don't have friends that aren't doing stuff, but does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask a question you don't like.
Okay.
And you might not have, you might not want to answer it on the air, so that's fine. But why aren't you comfortable with yourself in that environment? Like it's an interesting thing. And I'm not saying that I don't also experience that, but there is something about being at one with yourself, which sounds very like Eastern philosophy, but there is something about being at peace that allows you to sit in those spaces. And oftentimes your view of yourself might be causing you some problems, because if you view yourself as a productive person, and then you're in a situation where, I'm not talking about weeks, I'm talking about just an hour, where you're not able to produce something, it's a little mini identity crisis. Because who are you right now? Because you're not you if you're not productive, right? But there is something that is deeper than what you produce and more important than the things that you make. And that's kind of an interesting thing to think about. Like, I should be able to sit in the hammock for 30 minutes and not be, just like constantly like, I got to go get things done. But, like I should just be able to, like, hammocks are like the ideal whatever, right? They're the symbol of like relaxing. And so there is something kind of problematic with our view of ourselves when we're not able to relax. But at the same time, to argue with myself, which I like to do a lot, I don't think that being dissatisfied around people that are not sharing your values is a problem, And so if you're in a room full of people, like I remember I was in a group of people one time and no one did anything ever. Like I just remember thinking, like I just showed up into this environment and it was like a bunch of people who were doing nothing with their lives. They weren't going to school. They kind of had part-time jobs. They weren't doing anything, learning anything, producing anything. And I felt very bored and dissatisfied in that environment. And I think it was because I wanted more for myself than that. And so there's kind of that balance. I think, again, it comes back to balance. But like, if you can never be like, I'm just going to chill out and relax and just enjoy the fact that no one's doing anything right now. Nobody wants anything from me and I don't have anything that's due or whatever. There's probably something to look out there too.
Yeah. You and I have had this discussion off the air.
And we don't have to. I'm not digging for you to say or do anything in particular, but it is an interesting question to ask. You know, why is that situation uncomfortable?
Yeah, I haven't. We've had this discussion, but it's more so just like always just wanting to be something, like just anything that is better than like being nothing.
Sure.
Which I'm not nothing, but I just want to be something. And so I don't know. I haven't thought about it, but it drives me nuts all the time. That it drives me nuts that when I'm surrounded by people that aren't doing anything, and then I drive myself crazy because I know that I shouldn't be like driven crazy by this. So it's like a never-ending loop of.
So you're using a word. You're gonna hate inviting me on this show, I think. You are using a word that is often used to beat ourselves up a lot that you should just stop using.
Okay.
Do you want to know? Do you want to guess what it is?
Crazy?
Should.
Oh, should.
Yeah.
Good.
Because my wife says all the time, stop shoulding yourself. I think it's a great phrase. I don't know where she got it. I don't know that it's hers originally. But like we set these expectations for ourselves oftentimes without thinking about where they came from and if they're valuable. And usually they come from other people or comparing ourselves to other people or what we perceive other people think that we should be or do. And sometimes that's great. A lot of times it's not super helpful though. And so you keep saying like, I should do this or I should be this. I would just question that. Should you? Do you have to do that thing? Where does that come from? Why are you shoulding yourself?
This is like when Iris is on the show, and Kaitlin, you know what I'm talking about. And Kaitlin and Iris would just sit there and ask me all these questions. I'd always leave and I go, wow, I have to evaluate this part of my life.
It is interesting.
In a good way. No, I mean, I find this topic super fascinating. I also, when you started and you were talking about it, you're like, most people don't have this problem.
Which problem? Oh, right.
In my head, everybody has this problem.
Everybody has the problem of overproductivity.
Yeah, I know it's not.
Go step into any 100 level class in any college in the nation, and you will see that that's not the case. Actually, for that matter, go step in any 400 level class in any college in the nation, and just look around and just say, yeah, I don't think everyone in this room has the problem of overproducing. Time management, that might be something that everybody has a problem with, but I don't think overproduction is everybody's issue.
Sorry, I'm just thinking about going to 462 tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, having taught that class now for 4 or 5 semesters in a row, I can tell you that there are definitely people in every group project, every team that take on way too much, but they are usually in the minority. Then there are those people that will take on what they need to and what's easy for them to get a hold of and what they're asked to do. And then there are those people that you can't count on them and they avoid work like the plague and they have high hopes and high aspirations and they start stuff, but they never finish anything. I think that third group definitely doesn't have an overproduction problem. Like, it's like, I don't think they could ever burn out because I don't think they've ever had any fire. That's kind of mean to say, but it's true. You actually have to have some heat for the potential to burn out. Are you writing that down?
I've been taking notes this whole time.
You realize that this is being recorded and broadcast on the internet in a format.
I write it down.
Okay.
I've told before. I told her one time and I was like, I know we did this. I have zero idea what I said. I have zero idea what we said. And I've watched it back and I'm like, wow, we made really good points.
I do that. I do that sometimes. I'll go watch stuff and I'm like, oh, wow, look at that. Because most of the time I'm just trying not to sound stupid. And then afterwards I'm like, oh, hey, look at that. I said something halfway intelligent. That's nice.
Yeah.
Not all the time. Sometimes I'm like, wow, you say a lot and you just told a story that you didn't finish because you interrupted yourself with two other stories that you didn't finish. So
I heard myself saying like when I started talking last time, and I just sat there hearing it and I couldn't stop. But no, so I have a question then about like, I mean, because you guys have been at this for longer than I have. Professor Gray, you've been at this for way longer than both of us probably, but definitely. But
depends on what you mean by this, but yeah.
well, like just graphic design and design in general and side projects and all that. And Kaitlin has been at it longer than me because I've still only been doing this for a year and a half.
I'm curious if I've been doing it longer than you've been born. Just nod your head if the answer is yes to that. I started doing this in 2002. Okay, just checking. I'm just making sure. I feel older and older every year, and the students keep staying the same age, and I'm just like, wow, I just keep aging. Anyway, sorry, just checking. I'm just curious.
No, not not that.
Okay.
But have you guys ever had burnout so bad where you've just been sitting there and you're just, I can't design right now. I seriously can't. Because that's a fear that I have about it. And as we've been talking about it, I've realized it more because it kind of happened this summer until eventually at a hyperactive 2 a.m. decision, I decided I'm going to do 24 days of something with no day zero. And that was my way of getting over that burnout. And since then, I've just been afraid of burning out again. And so I'm just, okay, I gotta do this project. I gotta do this project. I gotta then just like keep on going to avoid burning out, which I feel like is not correct because it's going to cause myself to burn out harder.
So you have the gas gauge is on empty and the gas light is on, and your solution to running out of gas is to go faster, to like floor it, passing gas stations along the way. Is that what I just heard? Okay, I'm just making sure that I understand. I'm not saying it's illogical. I'm just saying that it doesn't make any logical sense.
The way that you put it.
Well, what you're saying is to avoid burnout, you've decided to work harder and take on more projects.
I'm not saying it's a great solution.
Oh, it's not a solution. It's actually causing more problems.
Yeah, but it's not a good thing, and I understand that. And hearing you say it makes me understand it even more.
And it's really hard. I completely understand that mentality. I don't think it's an unreasonable thing to do. I totally get it, because for most of us that have kind of gotten used to living this kind of productive life, where you do something during the day and you do something else in your free time, that has solved a number of problems for us. And so it seems like doing more of that would solve more problems, right? It's like, oh, I've got a new problem. In the past, there's a point in time in my life, and I've talked about this on my show a number of times, but where things weren't going great. My wife had postpartum depression, and things were super hard for both of us, hard for her, hard for me. And eventually, as we kind of overcame that and got out of that and figured out how to navigate that, that's when I started my first comic book. And it solved a ton of the issues that I was dealing with because of a number of things. And so I can totally understand the reaction of oh, here's a new problem. I had this incredible moment in my life where creativity and productivity really solved some major things that I was dealing with. So I should add more of that. but it's kind of like if you're baking something and you're not using any heat, and then you realize that you need to use heat to bake it. More heat doesn't necessarily like do better stuff. Eventually you just burn whatever it is you're trying to bake. There is a certain amount of balance, and there's a certain amount of balance in that as well. So just something to consider, that just because something has solved a problem for you in the past doesn't mean that more of that thing will solve any problem that comes your way. There are other solutions that you need to find. And it might be that the solution that you guys are looking for at this point could be some kind of balance, and maybe it's fishing, maybe it's going and feeding the ducks. I don't know. I mean, I know people that reupholster furniture, I know people that do like intentionally incredibly boring things because nobody expects anything of them, and there's no outcome that's good or bad. It's just a thing. I don't know if you can fish poorly. It seems like if you sit in the boat long enough, you've gone fishing, and that's what you did that afternoon or whatever. You know what I mean? Like there are some things that it just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not saying that's the answer, but maybe it is. Maybe you need to go on a walk.
Yeah.
Yeah. That wasn't my question, but I appreciate it. Because now I have more stuff to consider.
Oh, so you were asking a question and then I just interrupted you? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No.
I'm going to...
I finished the question and then you pointed out something else and I realized it as you said it and I was like, oh yeah, I did need to hear that.
Okay, so that's super inconsiderate of me. I have no idea what your question was. What were you asking?
You're okay. I was saying, have you hit a point before where you just haven't paced yourself, and you've been in this situation where I've been, where, as you said, I've run out of gas and I just have the light on and my solution is not a solution, and you've hit that point where you have burned out and you just sat there and you're just, I don't want to design. I don't feel like designing right now. I just am sick of it because I haven't hit that point, and I am afraid to hit that point.
That could be why I changed careers so many times.
Really?
And I don't know that that's really a solution, but like I didn't start out doing what I'm doing now. Yeah, I think in the first 6 years of my career, I had 3 major career changes, like not to different jobs, but like to completely different industries. And each time I just got a little sick of doing that thing. So I went and did something else. So it worked out really well, and I've still got 50 years to go, but anyway, yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing to think about. I have gotten to the point where you get creatively tapped out and you just don't have any ideas left. You don't have any motivation. I've also gotten to the point where when I feel that coming on, I try to head it off at the pass and relax a little bit or whatever. Or, I've talked about this in my show as well, where I'm not a big fan of super long projects. Joshua Kimball, he's been working on the same graphic novel for 5 years now. And it's an incredible achievement and it's a really good book.
It is.
But for me, I like to have shorter time frame achievements so that I can, kind of iterate that and go through that cycle of completion more frequently. So I've kind of designed a lot of things in my life around not having that problem. I also reverse engineer things. I think you're talking about 2 different things that could cause the same, not you, but anyone, the royal you, is that how you use that? We're talking about several different things that can cause the same thing where you just hit rock bottom and you just dry up. One thing is burnout, right? Another thing is you run out of, you've like creatively bankrupt yourself. You've withdrawn on your bank account over and over and over again, but you haven't put anything into the bank account. And so I will go and reverse engineer things. I'll go and study how other people are doing things by way of like filling up my creative bank account. I will, like, I think I worry about people who, and I do this all the time, but when I'm intentional about it, I don't. I worry about people who never are intentional about it. Like when you watch a show that you enjoy, when you go and watch a movie that you enjoy, like how many distractions do you have? Do you have your phone out? You know, are you like wandering around the house while it's on? You know, I mean, second screening, third screening. I remember one time several years ago, I realized that I was very literally listening to an audiobook, playing a video game with an Xbox controller while I was playing a video game on my phone and a video game on my iPad. And I realized maybe this isn't relaxing.
Yeah.
I don't think I have the capability
Yeah.
to do that.
I wasn't doing any of them well and I wasn't enjoying it. But I had, you know, like there are some games that need most of your attention and there are other games that that you can, like, you know, make a couple moves. But I realized that I was so dissatisfied with what was going on that like the loading time on the main game that I was playing was not acceptable. Like that was a limit of boredom for that 15 seconds that I wasn't okay with. So I was going to fill that 15 seconds with entertainment. And all of a sudden I'm like not relaxed. I'm not enjoying myself. I'm not really like immersed in this experience. I'm not really paying attention to the book. I had to rewind several chapters because I didn't know what happened, but it was on, you know? And so sometimes like, if you're like, oh, I'm going to like fill my creative bank account or whatever, like I'm going to go see a movie, like be present and enjoy the movie, you know, like don't second screen it. Don't talk during it. If anybody, by the way, is ever in a theater where I have paid money to see a movie and you speak out loud while the movie is playing, you'll hear from me because I'm that cranky old man. I no longer care what anybody thinks. I paid 3 times what I should have paid because movie tickets are super expensive now. And I need you to shut up because I went to the theater so that I could watch this movie, because that's like one of the only places that I can like watch a movie where I sit and enjoy the movie and I don't do anything else. It's kind of an interesting thing. I don't know.
Yeah, so you had answered my question, but I didn't realize it. But when you were phrasing it differently, I realized that you had.
Yeah. So it's happened to me a number of times. I would say, if I'm being perfectly honest, I think that happens at least 2 or 3 times a week where I'm just like, I'm out of ideas. I don't want to do this right now. Because it's hard and it's not something that I enjoy starting. I enjoy doing and I enjoy finishing it, but it's never fun to start it. There's always something. I remember the Resistance, right? Have you guys read The War of Art?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I don't think I've read a book in a really long time.
It is the opposite of what we're talking about right now. So maybe now is not the great time to listen to it because it'll get you really fired up to be super productive. But on the flip side of that, whenever I have a super strong desire to do my laundry, you know, like all of a sudden, like I will almost sit down to get my work started or to do something that I think is going to be fulfilling or something that's important to me. And then all of a sudden it's like, I haven't swept my studio in a while, or I really need to do my laundry, or I could mow the lawn. I know it's 10 o'clock at night, but maybe my neighbors won't mind. Like, those are not things that need to happen right now. Like that's a pretty good indication that you're doing something that you should be doing. And if there's something that you are using to distract yourself from something else, that distraction is something that you could look at. And sometimes that could be design. Sometimes it could be drawing. Sometimes it could be something like that. So I don't know. But yeah, I would say that I don't know if I hit like the rock bottom often, but yeah, it's pretty frequently where I take longer than I should to get started because I'm trying to distract myself, or I just can't think of anything to do. I don't know. That's why I like projects, is because I usually don't have to think of what I need to do, except for at the beginning. I think of what I need to do for long enough to like plan it out, and then like the next few months, I don't have to think about that anymore. I just do the next thing on the project. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's normal. Frank in the chats is saying creative bankruptcy. Now that's an analogy. So it's not mine. I think I stole it from Jake Parker. In case you're wondering, he's talked about that bank account a lot. So yeah.
Kaitlin, your thoughts?
Wait, sorry, what?
Your thoughts?
Just to go back to that question, I definitely have like hit up, and I like didn't think about it until Professor Kerr was talking about career changes, because like before my burnout, I 100% wanted to do photojournalism. Like that is what I wanted to do. And like it didn't click in my brain that like, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. So like I think that burnout, I knew it was a big burnout, but I think it was bigger than I thought it was. But I think that, and obviously like I don't have the answers, but
none of us do.
Yeah.
What's the point of this?
Yeah. One of the things I've started doing to avoid like running out of ideas is to just like write one down every single time I have one. And I've talked about this before because I truly 100% believe in it. But like I specifically remember times where I would sit down to design something and it's like, I know I've had ideas within like the past month, but I can't think of any of them and I don't want to start any of them. And so just like having the idea of like just having like that list on the side of if I ever do feel bored with whatever I'm working on, then I can go work on this other project has really helped me to feel like I'm avoiding burnout because like I have a backup. But one of the things I was thinking was interesting was when we were talking about the whole like your gas tank is on empty and the light's on and you keep driving past the gas stations. I think it's important to realize when your gas light is on. Like, I think a lot of us can keep going and not even realize that it's on until we're broken down on the side of the road. So I think even just the fact that you're concerned about it and you're watching for it is a huge step towards making sure it won't happen.
See, when you said that, when you started talking, I immediately started thinking about our group project. Professor Gray, you don't know about this, but do you remember when we were in the Sporey, like, all day? And, like, around 10 or 11, I laid down on one of the shelves and took a nap and then got up and continued working on the project.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, as we're talking, I'm thinking about all the times that I've done too much to like avoid burnout, and that one just clearly came back into my memory of like, yeah, I should have taken a break. Instead took like a 20-minute nap and just kept on going. In case anybody's ever wondering what pushing yourself too far is, that's a good example.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, times and seasons for everything, right? I mean, there's, you know, in certain situations, you got to do what you've got to do to hit a deadline.
Mm-hmm.
To hit a deadline.
You know, or whatever. But I just think it's important to consider what those deadlines, you know, which of those deadlines are self-imposed. Like I recently, like in between semesters, is working on this animated short. I'm super happy with how it turned out. It took me 2 weeks longer than I thought it would. And near the end, I was probably pushing too hard. And I realized like, oh, yes, this is a deadline, but this is a self-imposed deadline that I can move if I want. And I don't do that lightly. But there are other times where it's like, no, there's no self-imposed deadline. There's just deadline. There's just the client needs it, the boss needs it or whatever. And, you know, and there's some give in that as well. But you know, there are times where that's appropriate, but it does come at a sacrifice. You are risking it. you are pushing the envelope a little bit when you do that type of thing. So yeah, so it's sometimes necessary, and sometimes even good. But I remember when I first graduated, I was doing a lot of this stuff, and I kept blaming my boss for all of these overnighters that I was pulling. I probably pulled, like, I don't know, 2 to 4 like 30+ hour shifts a month is what I was doing. And it was because everything was always an emergency. And so I remember complaining about that to somebody, and she said, no, that's on you. I was like, no, he's making me do this. And he's like, yeah, but he can't make you do that. Like, you're saying yes to those things. So I thought about that. And then I just told him, hey, I won't be doing any overnights, all-nighters anymore. And he was like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. I said, yeah, I feel like it's kind of unhealthy. Like 2 or 3 days later, he was like, hey, I need you to, blah, 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 blah. And I said, oh yeah, I'll pick that up at 8 a.m. It's 5, so I'm gonna head out. Oh man. And he was so mad. I don't know if this is a good idea or a bad idea, but this is just a story. He was so mad at me, yelling and screaming and stuff. And then, you know what? Like the next day I got there to 8 and I started at it again, and I never had to do another all-nighter. I worked there for 2 years after that. And so a lot of the things, even in that situation that seemed like it had to happen, didn't really. And I've done all-nighters since then. But sometimes we convince ourselves that we need to push ourselves more than we do. And a lot of times those kind of emergency all-nighters, in my life and in the instance that you guys are both talking about, are actually the result of a lack of planning and preparation and executing.
Yeah, we know that one.
Right. But I mean, I do that in my own life. Like if I now know that something is due at a specific time, I have 2 choices. As soon as I know that thing, I can procrastinate and almost guarantee that things are going to be terrible at the end of that. I'm going to hurt myself by pushing too hard. Or I can say, I don't like hurting myself by pushing too hard, so I'm going to piece this out and take it out of like a normal pace. So a lot of like pacing ourselves is, I guess, what we're talking about right now. A lot of pacing ourselves is actually doing, like the correct planning and not needing the deadline to motivate us, but setting our own deadlines and pacing things out kind of in an interesting way. So anyway.
Yes. Anyways, we've been going for a while.
That's what happens when you ask me to talk about stuff. So
this is awesome. Both of us were so excited when you messaged me and you're like, how about tonight? We were like, yes, for sure.
That's awesome. Totally worked out.
Topic. Anyways, but yeah, we've been going for a while. And I have homework. So if you want to find our stuff, I updated the description to include all of your links, Professor Kerr. Literally all of them that are in your YouTube description are now in my YouTube description.
Oh man, there's so many of those.
Yes, I was in the Mac lab. So. But if you want to find his stuff, go to corykerr.com. If you want to see his art check, he does it with Joshua Kemble, and they do it on Monday, Wednesday at I don't know what time.
9 p.m. California time.
9 p.m. California time. And all of his links are in the description below. The link to subscribe to his YouTube, to find his t-shirts and all that. If you want to find my stuff, go to @diuguidvisualcomms on Instagram. That's pretty much the only place that I'm super active about my art stuff. I'm also active on Twitter, but don't find my Facebook. I don't do anything. And then if you want to find Kaitlin's stuff, go to @KaitlinSpirations and check out her website because it's in the bio and it's being updated.
Yes.
And thank you for joining us. Now we have this awkward ending to when it takes forever.